The term bedroom studio is pretty self-explanatory, and what comes in a bedroom studio is also pretty predictable. The one piece of furniture you might expect besides a bed, of course, is the measly Ikea desk with horrible speaker positioning and computer setup. And although I've technically been a bedroom producer for the past 9 years now, I think I deserve more than just an Ikea desk. So that's why I built that thing. And in today's video, I'm going to show you how I did it. Oh, the famed Ikea desk. Been working on one my entire career besides a clothing drawer, of course. There's nothing wrong with Ikea desks. It's just that I started to notice a huge problem. Every day that I would go to work, I would sit behind this Ikea desk and start to feel so uninspired. The amount of issues with the desk, like lack of space, unprofessionalism, and even the color contributed to my resentment to even open up Pro Tools some days. So I decided enough is enough. It's time to invest in a studio desk. And I knew exactly what I wanted. I wanted to get rid of my huge rack and opt for a mastering style desk so everything is right in front of me. Here's the thing about that though. Look at all these prices. For what I wanted both functionally and aesthetically, it was going to run me at least $1,000. I can't do that. So I did what any handy, cold-blooded man would do in this situation. I began to YouTube search the DIY section. As I was scrolling, I landed on a few different videos, specifically the one that is linked on screen right now. I sat at my shitty Ikea desk and said to myself, Liam, you could definitely use a challenge this month. So to commit, I decided to buy the centerpiece of the desk first. And this is where we're gonna start our build because quite frankly, this is also where I fucked up the most. So if you watch the video that I just linked, you'll see that the guy opted for a regular ass piece of 2x4 plywood. There's only one problem with that setup. My computer is definitely wider than 2 feet, so that plan was a no-go. Now, this was early in my build, so I was scared to buy some expensive pieces. So what did my dumbass do? I ended up buying 2 pieces of wood, gluing them together, and decided to cut them later. Guys, please don't do this. The centerpiece right now may look nice, but one day I'm afraid it's just gonna collapse in on itself, and I don't want that for you guys. I'll explain how I got around this later on in the video, so stick around, but the first thing you should do is measure the width that you need for this centerpiece. On screen right now are the dimensions that I used for my centerpiece. And a quick sidebar, this entire build was made using plywood that is 3/4 of an inch thick. So whenever I say any dimensions, please know that that's the type of plywood I'm using with the exceptions of the spacers. So now I'm committed. I bought the first piece of wood. I put it to the side and I knew that it was time to move on to the most complicated part of this build, which is the side pieces. Okay y'all, package secured. Got 4 big pieces of plywood. Ready to build this thing. This is the part where you need to be super handy with a saw or find somebody who is super handy. For any other part of this build, you can get the people at Home Depot to cut the wood for you, but since this piece is a little bit complicated, you're on your own. Luckily for me, I have my homie Eric from my hometown to help me out with this part. Once again, on screen are the dimensions that I used for my side pieces. These dimensions are a little different than the original video because I simply couldn't fit a 4x4 piece of wood in my tiny ass Corolla. But I'm glad that it ended up this size because it makes the desk feel a little bit more compact. You're gonna wanna make 4 of these pieces by buying a 4x8 piece of plywood and having the people at Home Depot cut it down to either 4x4 or 3x3 depending on your own dimension. The purpose for this angled design is so we can put outboard gear on the left and right and have it angled towards us. And speaking of outboard gear, it's time to space these out. First, go get yourself a few pieces of 1x8 and at least 1 or 2 pieces of 2x3. Then just tell the wizards at Home Depot to cut them down to 19 1/4 of an inch. That way, when you put in your outboard gear, it fits a little bit more snugly and you won't have an issue with screwing them in. While you're at the store, whatever the width is of your centerpiece, cut down a few 1x8s to that width as well. Those pieces are gonna act like support beams when we finally put the desk together. Oh, and be sure to save your scrap wood because you are going to need them. As for where to put the 1x8s, I put 2 on the floor and 2 in front of the angle part of the side piece. In case you didn't know this, please be sure to pre-drill your holes before adding your screws. Trust me, doing this is tedious, but it will probably give you a way better result, especially if you do it right. I must also say, please don't be afraid to make any mistakes here because we're gonna go back and fill any mistakes with wood filler. From there, it's time to put on some tops. Go ahead and jot down the total width of your side cards as well as the front depth. You're going to want to do the same for the top section where your speakers are going to be. Once you have that all written down, you're going to want to go to Home Depot and get some more plywood or project panels and have them cut it down to those exact measurements. Putting these in place are pretty self-explanatory too. You just put the pieces of wood on top and screw them where the legs are. If you can't figure that one out, I don't know what to tell you. Okay, so about that centerpiece. This is one of the hardest parts of the build because you have to make it level and screw it into place. Before you do this, you're also gonna have to consider if this is where you're going to sand and paint the desk or if you have to move it for all that. Because in my opinion, once you get it good, I don't think you'd want to go back and redo it all over again. The way I did it was by taking some scrap pieces of 1x8 and putting them on the side of the side pieces and sliding the center section into place. From there, I kept readjusting until I could get it as flush as it can be. Once you got it all level, it's time to support it. So remember that 1x8 piece of wood that you bought that's the same width as your centerpiece? You're gonna want to put them in places where they need the most support. So for me, it was in the back and in the front and one right in the middle. Having in these sections really eased my anxiety that if this breaks, it's still gonna be caught. If for some reason you find a better way to do this, then please leave it in the comments down below and help us all, please, please. Oh. Now, by this point, it felt like I already had a completed desk. In fact, I was able to lay out all my gear and even get a week's worth of work done. I got these rack rails by Penn Elcom, by the way, and the desk is supposed to be able to fit 14 rack units. Of course, this all depends on your own measurements and the angle that you made those side pieces, but for me, it ended up being 7 units each side. Now, if you're lazy, you could probably just leave the desk like this, but I wanted this baby to look nice. So the last steps of this build is to sand and paint it. Aside from the build itself, sanding and painting is literally the most time consuming. For me, it took a whole weekend, but thanks to my lovely girlfriend, it made this process 10 times more fun. You should go get you one of those. Maybe if you actually step away from Pro Tools once in a while, it'll happen. In case you didn't know already, all the supplies are found in the link in the description down below. But for this process, all you're really gonna need is some wood filler, some sandpaper, preferably 80 grit, and I think 300 grit is what I used, as well as primer, the things used for painting, and whatever color you want to paint your desk. The first thing I did was use the wood filler to go over any imperfections in the wood. This could be any natural holes or any holes where you messed up in. You essentially want to fill that hole and sand it down once it dried. Once all that's done, take some sandpaper, preferably something around like 60 to 100 grit, and go over the entire desk. The goal here is to make sure that the desk is smooth and level, and when you touch it, it doesn't feel as though it's going to just hurt your hand or something. Once I wiped away all the dust, I got a roller and went to town with the first coat of primer. I went ahead and let that dry overnight, and the next day, the first thing I did was apply my first coats of black paint. Another thing that I wish I did during this process was sand with light sandpaper in between coats. I strongly believe that if I did that little extra step, all the surfaces on my desk would feel a little bit more smooth. Nevertheless, I did a second coat later on that day and let the entire desk dry overnight. The next and final day, all I did was lightly sand the tops with some high grit sandpaper. I made sure to go with the grain of the wood and not too hard that it fully takes away the paint. Like I said, if I had to do this again, I would do this step and probably add a third coat. But because I had to go back to work the next day, I decided to just put one more layer of top coat. Luckily, top coat only takes a few hours to dry, so once that was all done, it's time to assemble this baby. And that is my dream studio desk. I'm so proud of this thing, and it feels good to know that I built this with my own hands as well as the hands of some people that I love. As you can see, there's still a ton of free rack space in my desk, so hopefully if you like comment, and subscribe to this channel. I'll soon get some sponsorships and be able to fill it with some nice compressors, EQs, whatever I think I can get. Once again, if you're following along with the build, I put the entire supply list in the link in the description down below, as well as a few notes to help you know exactly what to do during certain steps or what to tell the Home Depot wizards. That is my dream desk, and I'll definitely be updating the desk as time progresses, and I'll so let you know if anything changes. But until then, subscribe, click the bell icon. I love you guys, and hopefully, hopefully, I'll see you guys next week.